Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to build our very first MCP server together, and I mean together. I want you to code along with me as we go through each step. By the end of this video, we'll have built our very own Hello World MCP server that works seamlessly with Claude Desktop. Before we jump into the code, let me ask you this. What do you think happens when Claude needs to access information that's not in its training data? That's where MCP comes in. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. Think of it as a bridge that lets language models talk to external tools and data sources. It's like giving language models the ability to pick up the phone and call other services when it needs help. By the end of this tutorial, we'll have 3 working tools. A simple Hello World function, a greeting tool that takes names, an information tool that describes our server. Sound good? Let's start building. The first thing we need to do is create our project workspace. This is like setting up the laboratory before conducting an experiment. Open up the File Explorer and navigate to wherever we like to keep our coding projects. Now, let's create a new folder like this, Hello World MCP. This will be our project home directory. Got your folder created? Fantastic. Now, let's open this folder in the terminal. Now, here's where we start getting into the good stuff. We need to create what's called a virtual environment. But let me explain why this is so important before we dive in. Think of a virtual environment like having a clean, separate workspace for each of your projects. Imagine you're a chef working on different recipes. You wouldn't want the ingredients from your chocolate cake mixing with your spaghetti sauce, right? Virtual environments work the same way for Python projects. Let's create our virtual environment by typing this exact command. Python, myenv. What's happening here? Python is creating a completely isolated environment called myenv, where we can install all the libraries we need for this specific project without affecting any other Python projects on our computer. Once that's finished, and it should only take a few seconds, we need to activate our virtual environment. This is like stepping into our clean workspace. Type this command, myenv scripts activate. We'll know it worked when we see myenv appear at the beginning of our command prompt. That's our visual confirmation that we're now working inside our virtual environment. Now that we're in our clean virtual environment, let's install the tools we need. Think of this like gathering all our ingredients before we start cooking. First, we'll install the star of the show, the MCP library that will help us build our server. Type pip install MCP. Next, let's make sure we have the latest version of pip, which is Python's package installer. And finally, we'll install the MCP CLI, which gives us some command line tools for testing and development. To install this, we will type pip install MCP CLI. With these 3 installations, we've just equipped ourselves with everything we need to build and test our MCP server. Time to open up our favorite code editor. Whether you prefer VS Code, Cursor, PyCharm, or any other editor, open it up and make sure you're working in the directory where we created our virtual environment. Now comes the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's write some code. Create a new Python file and name it Hello World MCP. This file will contain all of our MCP server magic. Let's start with our imports. At the very top of our file, we will add this line. From MCP server fast MCP import fast MCP. We're importing the Fast MCP class, which is like importing a superpowered toolkit that makes building MCP servers incredibly easy. Fast MCP handles all the complex networking and protocol stuff behind the scenes, so we can focus on building cool functionality. Now, let's initialize our MCP server. Add this line, MCP Fast MCP Hello World MCP Server. We're creating an instance of our Fast MCP server and giving it a friendly name. Here in this case, it is Hello World MCP Server. Here's where things get really interesting. Let's create our first tool. In MCP, tools are like special functions that a language model can call to perform specific tasks. Add this code to your file. First type MCP Tool Decorator, which is like putting a special label on our function that says, hey, this is a tool that Claude can use. It's the magic that transforms a regular Python function into an MCP tool. Now let's type async def hello world, and it returns string value. You might be wondering about that async keyword. Let me explain this with a real-world analogy that'll make it crystal clear. Imagine you're at a busy restaurant. Without asynchronous programming, it's like having only one waiter who must completely finish serving one table, taking the order, bringing drinks, serving food, processing payment, before they can even look at another table. Everyone else just sits there waiting. With asynchronous programming, the async keyword, it's like having a super efficient waiter who can take an order from table 1, then while the kitchen prepares that food, go take drinks to table 2, check on table 3, and handle multiple tables simultaneously. Much more efficient. In our MCP server context, this means our server can handle multiple requests from a language model at the same time, making everything much faster and more responsive. Now we will add a docstring that tells us what this tool does, and we will then return the value hello world. Let's add a second tool that's a bit more interactive. Add the MCP tool decorator as before, and create a tool named greet. It should have a name parameter and return hello, followed by the name passed to the tool. This tool is more interesting because it accepts a parameter. Claude can call this tool and pass in someone's name, and it'll return a personalized greeting. The name as string tells that this tool expects a string parameter called name. Now let's create our final tool. This tool will be named getServerInfo, and it will return a string value. It will describe what the server does by returning the message. This is a simple Hello World MCP server with basic greeting functionality. Before we integrate our server with Claude Desktop, let's test it using the MCP inspector. In the terminal, we will first activate the virtual environment. And then we will run this command, MCP dev hello world mcppy. This magical command will start up the MCP inspector and give you a localhost link with a session token. Copy this entire URL and open it in the web browser. Once it is opened, click the Connect button. This establishes a connection between the inspector and your server. If there are any errors in your code, they'll appear right below the connection status. Think of this as your debugging dashboard. In this case, there are no errors. Now, click on the Tools tab. This is where the magic happens. You should see all 3 tools we just created listed there. After clicking on the tools, we received information but no errors appeared at the bottom. For each tool, you'll see its structure or schema. Basically, the blueprint, what outputs it provides. The output type is an object. It returns a value of type string. It has result in the required outcome, which means result is an important variable, and includes a title indicating that this is the output of this particular tool. If we run this, it should print hello world. So let's run it. And as we can see, it prints hello world. There are no errors when we execute this. Now we have a greet tool that uses a name parameter to greet the person based on the provided name. It has world as the default value. Let's run this. It should return hello world. And as we can see, it prints hello world. Now, let's pass the value Alice and see how it works. Here we can see it returns hello Alice. So this tool is working correctly. Now, lastly, we have the get_server_info tool, which returns a message describing what this server is about. Let's run it. We should see the message. And here we can see that it returns the correct message. Congratulations, your MCP server is working perfectly. But we're not done yet. Now comes the really exciting part. Time to integrate your server with Claude Desktop. This is where your creation comes to life. First, open Claude Desktop. Click on the menu, then click on the file, and open the settings. Look for Developer Settings. This is where all your MCP servers are managed. If you don't see Developer Settings, don't panic. Go to the Help menu and look for Enable Developer Mode. Click on it to enable it. After enabling, go back to Settings to see if Developer appears. If it's still not there, close Claude Desktop completely, terminate it from your Task Manager, and reopen it. The Developer Settings should now be visible. Once it is visible, the Enable Developer Mode might not appear again in the Help, just like in our case. In the Developer Settings, we can see any existing MCP servers. Our server won't be listed yet because we need to add a configuration entry. Click on Edit Config to open the Claude Desktop config JSON file. This file tells Claude Desktop how to find and run your MCP servers. You'll see existing configurations for other servers. Let's add our server by copying an existing entry and modifying it. Add this configuration. We will change the name to Hello World for our MCP server. Here's what each part does. Command points to the Python executable in our virtual environment. We can find our executable file here. And then there is args, which points to our server file. And then we have env, tells Python where to find the packages we install. Make sure to replace the paths with your actual file paths. Save this configuration file. Now close Claude Desktop completely. And reopen it. Now navigate to the developer's settings. And here we can see that our Claude Desktop server is not listed. We might need to terminate it from the Task Manager to ensure a clean restart. Let's terminate it from the Task Manager. And now reopen the Claude Desktop. Go back to Developer Settings. And you should now see your Hello World server listed and showing as running. If we want to peek behind the curtain, click Edit Config, and then open the Logs folder. We'll find a log file for our server named like Hello World with a prefix MCP server. This file shows what's happening in the background when we run our server. Here we can see the initialization of the server and the path of our server file. If there is any error, it will appear at the end. There are no errors. Now let's go back to the Claude desktop. Look for the Searches and Tools icon in Claude Desktop. This is where we can enable or disable MCP servers and their tools. We can see our MCP server listed with all 3 tools available. Let's test our creation. Try these prompts. Type "Use the Hello World" tool. Claude will ask for permission the first time. Then execute your tool and return "Hello World." And here we can see that it is returned "Hello World." Next we will try "Can you greet Alice?" Claude intelligently uses your greet tool with the name parameter. And here we can see that it has greeted Alice. We will now ask it to provide information about the server. Claude will use your Get Server Info tool to describe what your server does. And here we can see that it has returned the message. Now, let's try giving an invalid prompt, like "Use the greet tool" and set the age parameter to 25. Notice how Claude handles this gracefully as it returns the result and ignores the age parameter. We've created a bridge between Claude and custom functionality that we designed. We've essentially extended Claude's capabilities with our own code. Our MCP server is now a permanent part of our Claude desktop setup. Every time Claude needs to greet someone or provide server information, it can use the tools we created. And there we have it. We've successfully created and tested our very first MCP server. If this tutorial helped you understand MCP and get your server running, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest tutorials. Remember, the best way to learn programming is by doing, so don't stop here. Take what you've learned today and experiment with it. Try modifying the tools, add new parameters, or create entirely new functionality. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.